Hello, friends. Good afternoon, or good morning, or good evening from wherever you're listening to this podcast from. Whew. My name is Perry Martins, and this is Life with Perry Martins. It's nice to have you listening to me today. And today, which is a Sunday, it's a beautiful afternoon here in the city of Lagos. There's a thought that was going through my mind in a couple of since the beginning of the year. This is my first podcast for the year, though, so happy new year to you in case you're listening to this at this time. So my thought this morning is around organized church, the dilemma of organized church. Now, what do I want to talk about? You're listening to me, you're a Christian, you've been in church for a very long time, You've been doing all that the church says you should do, and somehow you feel as if something's not working, things are not working for you, things are not tying up for you the way you want it to be. This might be for you. This might give you a little bit of perspective. For someone like me, I grew up in church. I literally grew up in church because my parents were church people. My father spent all his time in church, serving as choir master. Because my father was a trader, we traveled a lot. So I was given birth to in the north, in Zaria. So we lived in Zaria. From Zaria, we went to Banki. Banki is somewhere in the outskirts of Borno State. From there, I went to live with my uncle in Maiduguri. From there, I came back to Aba. By then, my parents had moved to Aba. So we moved around a lot. I went to school in Owerri. From there, I went to Port Harcourt. I traveled around a lot myself too because of music. So my dad was a choir master and a choir director, what they call choir director these days, so choir master, right? So he taught a lot of choirs. We were Catholic, so he taught a lot of Catholic choirs. Every single place we went to, my father was going to be part of those. So we've either found the church, if the church is not existing, and then build the choir. So he's always there to make sure that all the psalms and the hymns and the missals are taught and all that. He wrote a lot of songs, mostly all of them for church. So some of the father's memories that I have of when I was a kid were all either being around church choir or being in a church setting. I have very few memories of me and my father alone, me or in our family alone, just being family, or maybe playing or doing something. Everything was like literally our life was church. So I literally grew up in church. Now, in growing up in church, I was taught that if you serve God, you make yourself available to God's service, God is going to bless you, God is going to lift you, God is going to give you money or wealth or make you prosperous, all sorts, right? That I was told that is what will happen to me if I devoted my life. In fact, there were scriptures that say, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and every other thing shall be added unto you. So these were all what formed the mindset, the paradigm with which I saw life and my siblings saw life when we were growing up, right? So everything was connected to going to church, not necessarily knowing God and serving God, but going to church. So going to church was interpreted and equated to knowing God, right? And this is something, some of the tables I might have to shake or things I might need to break. Going to church, our parents equated going to church to knowing God. But the truth is, it's not true. Going to church cannot be equated to knowing God. Having a personal relationship with God is not tied to going to church. And probably I'm going to explain this a little bit further, right? So these are some of the things that we were taught and we grew up with it. So now I spent my on free days. When I use on free days, I mean days that I wasn't in control of my time. My parents were in control of my time. I spent it in church, like literally in church. In the Catholic Church, there's no organization or sodality, like they call it, or group, that was relevant, important in the Catholic Church that I was not part of, right? So after a while, I left the Catholic Church, still trying to know God, in pursuit of God per se, which is another, another wrong notion. So in pursuit of God, I left the church, and joined the Pentecostal fellowship when I was in school, and then of course from there, just moved on to, being a full-fledged, charismatic. So I've been in church all my life. So now that I get older, if I look back at my life, I sometimes feel that the church and church activities has taken a reasonable amount of my lifetime, such that I feel I give so much to church and church activities, and there's little or nothing left for me. Now, someone can tell me, if you did so, then it means you served God and God is going to bless you. But is it really like that? Because I'm remembering my father, who spent his entire time in church. And I'm trying to look back at what really did he gain. He died a catechist. He died as a village catechist in my village, despite having traveled around and taught so many choirs. No award, no credits. Most of the songs he wrote for the church, nobody credited him. Someone will say his reward is in heaven. But what about the reward here on earth? What about recognitions? What about awards? What about money and leaving a legacy and a heritage for your children? Right? So this brings me into the dilemma of organized church. Now, I want to differentiate organized church from relationship with God. There are two different things. Yes, they are connected at some point, but trust me, they are two different things. Organized church. The first place church was mentioned in the scriptures in the Bible was where Jesus said to Peter, "You are Simon Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church." Now, we need to define church, what church is. Church, or the body of Christ as it's called, is the gathering of God's people. It must not be in a building. It must not be in the building or some big cathedral. It is the gathering of God's people. In the days of Jesus, he didn't sought to build any buildings. The apostles didn't seek to build any buildings. In fact, church, or the gathering of God's people, happened in people's houses, right? And because it happened in people's, nobody was trying to build churches. The entire concept of building a place of worship started, with the Roman Catholic, when they started having to buy land. So and what now happens is this: once church moves from being a gathering of God's people to become an organized church, that's organization, a whole lot come into play. Once the gathering of God's people goes from being the gathering of God's people to become an organized church where there is a leader, there are subordinate leaders, there is a place of worship, there are systems and structures, that needs to be running 24/7. Once he goes at that point, it becomes a different thing entirely. It becomes an organization. And once it becomes an organization, it means that you have to employ people. So right today in churches, people are employed by church. Now, people are employed by church. Maybe musicians are employed by church, or the choir is employed by church, or church has a building. So because of that, they have security, they have a maintenance officer, So because it has become an organized, you have drivers who will drive the ministers around. So because it has become an organized system, it means that certain structures and systems come into play. Now, what that means is that the need for more money to be able to keep the organization running becomes a necessity. So guess what? You now hear ministers or shepherds or pastors, or reverend fathers always asking for donations and donations and donations. So there's huge project that has to be done. We have to do a concert or do this event or do this or do that. We have to pay staff. So it begins to rub off on the people, because it is the people who are coming to the church would have to pay for those things the church is trying to do, right? And all of them in the name of giving to God. But guess what? It rubs off on the people, because what it means is that the pastor has to now begin to devise means, or the reverend, or the shepherd has to now begin to devise means to be able to get people to give, because giving is supposed to be willing. And it's not every time that a regular human being is willing to give. No wonder the scripture says, give, from your heart, like Apostle Paul said. So once the entire thing about money begins to come in, it begins to now mess up the system. It begins to sound somehow, because of the amount of burden that running the church puts on the pastor or the reverend, or the vicar in that particular local church. It means that church has to keep asking people to raise money, to give money, to send money. Church, the vicar will now start devising means, first fruits, start to look at the Bible to find scriptural backing for every form of giving that he wants or she wants to, get the people to give. So this begins to create a dilemma. Now the church moves away from caring for the souls of people to caring about impression, reputation, influence, projects, building. It begins to rob the church, or begin to rob Christianity or the body of Christ of what it really is supposed to be focusing on. Now, because those systems and those structures need to run, people need to run them. So here comes the vicar in order to get, because the truth is, because of the amount of manpower that is needed to run a church, you can't pay everybody. So you have to get people to volunteer to do work in church, and people will now have to give the most precious thing in their life, which is their time. The most precious thing in their life, which is their time. Your time is the most precious thing you have. So you see people who spend their entire life working, helping to build church, helping to work in church. Some people come to sweep the church every day in the name of we're doing it for God. So some people will come to sweep the church every day. Some persons will give their money. Some persons will serve in different departments and units in churches, ushering, protocol, ministers. People do all sorts of work to get the church running. And the truth is, by submitting themselves to do those things, they are using the time they would have used to do something else, to do something in quote unquote the house of God, so that God will, and most of the people who do it because they feel that God will bless them, because they have applied themselves to his house, in quote. How many house of God do we have around Nigeria, around Africa, around Lagos, around the world? House of God all over the place. House of God all over the place. And people who would have used the time to build you. In fact, you see families where the parents or one or two members of the family are so involved in church that they neglect the home front. They neglect the relationship with their wife, with their children. And before you know it, the children will begin to lose values because there's nobody, their parents are not there to take care of them. We have seen and heard the stories of how pastors raise very uncultured, unwholesome, spoiled children because they were not paying attention to the children. They were doing the work of the Lord. Over and over again, we've seen this happen. Over and over again, we've seen this happen. The dilemma of organized church. So you are serving in the house, and then the pastors and the vicars and the reverends, they tell you that you have to come and work in the house of the Lord. So you leave everything you would have been doing in order to create a good legacy, to be a better person, create solutions for the world, and then you come to spend that time in servicing and serving the church. There is a difference between serving God and serving the church. They are two different things. In fact, God doesn't even call you. God did not call you to serve him. He called you so that he will love you. He called you so that he will love you. Not you wanting to prove to him that you love him. You can't prove to God that you love God. You probably don't even love him. You are probably coming to him because of something that you need, and that's not true love. So these are the dilemmas. And guess what? Like me, you wake up one morning and then you discover that you have spent a reasonable amount of your lifetime working and serving in different church organizations, and probably maybe you don't have a lot to show for it. And then you see your friends who are in the world per se, or weren't so active in church. They have things to show for it. They have houses to show for it. They have cars to show for it. They have a good heritage to show for it. They have inheritance. They have stuff to show with what they did. Have good education. They have things, that they are showing because they employ their time to do stuff that would benefit them, help them. And the truth is, it's not everybody that will end up to become a pastor or that will end up becoming a reverend in church. I have sat down to talk with several persons whose parents are pastors, and some of them tell you how their parents couldn't leave anything for them because they spent it all on trying to build churches. This is the third part of this dilemma. The Pentecostal churches that are owned or founded by a particular individual. So guess what? You come into the church, you apply your time, your energy, your effort, your money. Every time they say give, you give. Every time they say build, you build, and you give to the church. And any day you stop giving, the pastor will probably not remember you. The members of the church will probably not remember you. You stop giving, Maybe something happens, maybe something goes bad. And the truth is, it's not really the pastor's issue, because him too, he has his own personal things. Him too, he has an ambition. He's trying to build the next mega church. So it's not you're probably the least person in his mind. And guess what? He gives birth to children, and his children will automatically inherit the church and inherit everything that is his. I mean, it's already happening. We have a lot of examples of parents who build churches and then they hand over to, maybe the father passes on, hand over to the wife. The wife is already positioning her children, or even the parents are positioning their children in different arms of the church to hand over the church to them. Because that is what they spend their lifetime to do, and that is the legacy. So everybody who has contributed time, money, effort to build that church, they literally don't get anything. Nothing. They don't get anything from the physical, human perspective. Maybe God will bless them. We don't know. But now we know that God's blessing is not dependent on what you do or what you don't do. That God blesses you if you ask him to bless you. The conditions of God's blessing is you ask and you receive. It's not about what you do. It's about you ask, you receive. Asking, you receive. You ask, whatever you ask, you get. That is the concept of receiving from God that we heard from Jesus. So you help a certain man of God to build the church, build. And the truth is, one day, if he doesn't like your face and tell you, you know what, I don't like your face anymore, go. You go. You didn't gain anything. You didn't earn anything. Nothing. I know this podcast is long, but it's really something we have to talk about, because a lot of people are in this situation where you have served for a very long time. You know, I've been in church for too long and around, I can begin to give examples or even call names. People who have served diligently, no one served, but they don't get anything. You don't get the pastor or the vicar, gets everything. They are the person that everybody sees. They are the person everybody goes to. Even though you are part of the machinery that makes his work easy, it doesn't really get to you. And the pastor will probably say, "Oh, it's God that will bless you. I can't really do stuff and enough for anything for you." And that is the truth. That is the truth. So it just brings you to that place of, what exactly do I gain from being part of a church? Maybe it's better I just, come to church and just go. If there is any I want to attend. I mean, these days you can stream online and just love on God from where you are, and use your time to build yourself. I mean, there are people all over the world who never entered a church, and some of the most successful inventions and technological advancements that the world is seeing are from people, and many of them don't have a lot to do with church. They never been to one. They're just good people who naturally would give to charity, but because the truth is, for you to develop solutions or to be crucial and influential to your community, you have to apply yourself and your time. And when you spend that entire time running around in church trying to help another man build his dream or his vision, and you don't have anything to show for it, now sincerely, it's not the fault of the pastor, because he has the vision and he's trying to build it, and you accepted to be part of it. He didn't force you. And you come in and you want to be part of what he's building, fine. It's not his responsibility. It's not responsibility. It's not his fault. He didn't offend you in any way. You allowed yourself to be talked into coming. You allowed yourself to be talked into giving your money. You believe that when you give, or when you give your time or your money, you're going to get XYZ in return. Even though it's not really true. So this is it. This is the dilemma of church and an organized church. So the question is, what should you do? What should I do? The thing is to decide what is more important to you. First things first, let me break this myth. God is not going to bless you more or less because you worked or participated in a church. The truth is, there are a lot of people who have never seen a church in their life, never been a church, and they are making progress, they're moving forward, they're doing stuff. You're not going to be blessed more or less. Even though the book of Revelation talked about the crowns and how for those who helped in furthering the gospel or the kingdom, there will be a crown for them. You can do that without being part of an organized church. You can achieve that without being part of an organized church. What am I saying? Know God for yourself. Love God for yourself. Receive His love and do as much as you can to love Him back. But His love for you is constant. What He has given to you is constant. The revelations, inspiration, whatever God and His capacity is making available to you or can make available to you is constant. It's not dependent on whether you do anything for Him. Now, out of the abundance of the love you have for God, you can decide to do something or to help a pastor who is building a church. But the truth is, it doesn't add or subtract from who you are and what God can do. And I'm saying this for a lot of people who are tied down in churches where they're probably not appreciated, where they are angry, they are bitter, they don't understand where their life is. The truth is, what you need to succeed and prosper in, like God blesses the work of your hands, you have to have something that you're doing. Now, if you are in church hoping that by just being in church you will get blessed, sorry. I know a lot of people who have been in church, their life is not working for them. Go and discover your gift, your talent, what God has called you to become, what you have the grace for. Go and learn it, know how to do it. It can be within the church and Christian and religious realm, or it can be outside it. Go and find it and impact your community as a person. And you must not be in a church. When I mean church, I mean organized church with building and pastor and every day calling for giving. You mustn't be in one. And I think that the pastors and the churches, or the pastors who are listening to this podcast, should begin to think of how they won't need to be asking for money every day, every now and then. And they also should be able to tell the people the truth, that they must not come and work and serve. It's witchcraft when you're trying to manipulate people to come and serve or work or give to the church and tell them that if you give, God will bless you, and God will you're manipulating people. What God is doing in the life of your people is not dependent on whether they work or they give or not. No, God's gift is freely. He has given it. If you want to use a bit of faith to serve Him, fine. If you don't want to, it's not mandatory. It's not mandatory. So that is the end of my discourse this afternoon. This is almost 26 minutes. That's how long the deliberation is. But thank you for listening and have an amazing day. My name is Perry Martins, and this is Life with Perry Martins. God bless you. If you have comments, comment. I want to hear.